I rise here with a sense of duty for approximately 34 years, or might be even more, to do the honors of debating another budget, this time as opposition, but in any case, as a member of parliament who would want to express certain sentiments about this budget presented under the theme, a secure, prosperous, and sustainable Guyana. I want to immediately state, Mr. Speaker, that while this theme aims to convey an optimistic vision, there is quite a bit of glaring deficiencies, certain missed opportunities, and misallocations, as I would put it, especially within the security sector, which I will be speaking on. I recall last time I spoke, you indicated to me that you got to stick to your shadow ministry. I indeed was galloping into certain directions to be a general critic, but but I rather suspect that this occasion, it will be for me to ensure that I do a critique of the national security in the context of wanting a broader vision in view of the monies that we have now. Certainly. Mr. Speaker, the President often speaks of one Guyana, but this budget presentation belies that rhetoric. The 108.7, I will call it 109 billion to round it off, allocated for security may appear to be robust on the surface, but on a closer examination, it reveals troubling misallocations, unaddressed systemic issues, and an over-reliance on what I call superficial solutions. Security is not merely about infrastructure or technology that will be utilized in those infrastructure, but it encompasses the safety and dignity of every citizen, our borders' integrity, the capacities of our personnel in those infrastructure, and our justice system's resilience. Mr. Speaker, I say that not to denounce the fact that we are going to build more police stations, but to say that the misallocation occurs as a result of not training enough people, because there must be human development with infrastructural development. This increase in the security sector from 94 billion last year to 109 billion this year reflects 14.5% increase. But this increase, based on the policies I noticed in the speech of the finance minister and the speech that will certainly follow mine, based on what we heard for the past 4 years, is far from being transformative. That is the speech of Mr. Ben, Honorable Minister. It remains skewed to institutional, what you call infrastructure, rather than institutional improvement and the broader framework required for national safety and security. I want to say, take for example, we're going straight now to reconstruct what is called the Brickdam Police Station at $1.7 billion. I think I have it correct, one accounts. And that accounts for a staggering 36% of the police infrastructure budget. This is I call a disproportionate allocation, which raises critical questions about whether the resources are being strategically utilized and more properly allocated to address our security needs both at the coastal and hinterland region. It is good to have one of the finest state-of-the-art institutions at Brigham, but it is also important that we must have that in the hinterland regions and other coastal areas, and so to complete what is called a balance between the human side and also the infrastructural side. I want to indicate too that we must not leave the hinterland area where we are going to have security issues, especially in Essequibo, concerning, and to leave it critically underserved. This is a one Guyana in accordance with the president, and one Guyana means not putting all the money in Georgetown necessarily and regionalizing or marginalizing the regions under the guise of development. The $6.2 billion Safe Country initiative aims to expand surveillance too, with an additional 320 sites across 6 regions. But I want to say that indeed, that being so, it fails to address what I call systemic vulnerabilities, such as the absence up to today, although we tried it from 2015 and started the process through a COOM set of recommendations, that is the person that came from England, is the absence of a robust data protection protocol. The other thing is a minimal cybersecurity framework. We have tried as best as possible to work that out, but it seems that some people can get charged and convicted and others can't be. And it is somewhat imbalanced in that regard. Limited interagency integration and oversight. Because as you know, and from my readings and even the expert advice that I had gotten from Mr. Coombe and Sitlington and all of them, technology without a supportive ecosystem, Mr. Speaker, is akin to constructing a house on quicksand. So we can make a 16-story or a 12-story brick dam police station, but if we don't have the personnel, we don't have the framework, the protocols that go with all of those, it is building a house on sand. And then there is what I call the human resource development. We can never leave out the human element, as I have emphasized, from or neglect it from the whole concept of the larger framework of infrastructure. This budget under security allocates $250 million to train, I think it is 1,700 security personnel in crime scene management, forensic analysis, and cybersecurity. And this provisioning is necessary, but it is also a provisioning that requires what the recommendations that have come from the Coombe report, specialized career pathways for certain personnel inside of that police force. So we can have units therein that can know very profoundly matters regarding cybersecurity, matters regarding crime scene management, and so on. So it is one thing to just say, well, we're going to train them at the elementary level of security and crime scene management, but we do not have a set of policemen who you can rely on in relation to certain pathways, especially in the context of the new crimes that the Caribbean report has indicated will happen in an oil economy, like the marine section out there, what can happen, and also because of the Venezuelan input and the intelligence that is required from the insecurities from those what I call ungovernable spaces in and around those in hinterland regions. So although we have this 250 for training, we do not have any provisioning for performance metrics tied to outcomes. That was very important in the human resource report that Mr. Coombe did in connection with the British security sector reform. What we in Guyana suffer, and I tell you, indeed, I saw it for myself as public security minister, that we do not do these performance metrics so that you can know that this is a policeman that is doing well, or this is a unit that is doing well as against what we want of them. And then the long-term professional development framework. Well, that ties in to the specialized career pathways that I'm talking about. We need to spend lots more money on that set of pathways. And as a result of that, I think, as a result of not doing that, I think we have failed our skilled, motivated workforce that is required for a modern security framework, one that will take care of the modern security challenges. And in a similar line, I want to make the point of what happened to our prison service realities. It is fundamental that indeed we have to make budgetary allocations for prisons. But what I feel has to be prioritized in view of the at least much touted talk about reintegration and so on, that we prioritize at this time rehabilitation over what is called huge spendings. I think it is $6.2 billion on further prison service infrastructure. We want to foster reintegration into society. Reintegration, as was said by our Honorable Attorney General, Anil Nandalal, when he did that legislation some time ago, is important. It is not as if we must have a situation where we jail people just for sometimes minor offenses and so on. We have to start the process of ensuring that they do not commit the crimes again, what we call recidivism, and also the reintegration into society after they come out from prison. And that must be coordinated, I must say, in a strengthened way with social services. We have to look after people with a multi-network of the ministries involved. And that I see as somewhat misallocations occurring there. I want to also indicate that there must be an allocation for border and maritime security, which remains woefully inadequate. It is not adequate. And this was a big issue when we had that British security sector reform, in which there was, I think, a big report, not I think, I know of the report in relation to maritime security. Our limited coastal patrol capabilities can do damage to securing, as part of how we get a theme for this budget, securing the safety of people. There's too limited coastal patrol capabilities. Then also, we have an insufficient radar and aerial surveillance coverage. We are weak in the agency coordination, as very, very weak right now. This had started what I had started a program of trying to integrate all of the interagencies involved in security and would have weekly meetings with them. I don't know if that is going on. But these deficiencies expose our nation risks ranging from illicit trafficking to territorial violations, undermining national sovereignty. And then the forensic capabilities, our forensic lab. I know that prior to 2015, we had a lab that was started, but somehow it seems that we still have to go overseas. And I rather suspect that the challenges that I faced are still faced by the Honorable Minister. But the technological upgrades and weak laboratory capacity, we must not allow in a country that is the largest, or what you call the fastest growing economy and all of that. This hampers effective crime solving, and it also hampers judicial outcomes. So that must be prioritized for the purposes of evidence-based policing. And something must be done, even if we have to ask regional governments for support. And I remember we do have a formidable experience and expertise out of Jamaica, from the Jamaican Constabulary. Now, I want to indicate that there are larger and broader issues that we must deal with in connection with the budgetary allocations. I feel that there are recommendations for reforms in the two reports that we had. One was the Sitlington report, and the other one was the Coombe report. And in those reports, we have additional recommendations that were done by other experts that these two experts had indicated ought to come on the scene and to do. And it would be wise, because a lot of times I hear our government officials indicating that, Mr. Ramjattan, I like the cost of, but what you propose? Well, we have to start developing a national security strategy in view of the very big dollars we got now to spend on what I regard as a national security strategy. Yeah. But it seems, Mr. Speaker, that the government officials only want to talk the talk. And when they get from us what we want, and which is provided for in the law to help, they don't do it. And I come here with the point that in that robust constitutional period of 1999-2002, we created for this parliament a parliamentary security committee. And you know, I cannot understand it. But the Honorable Minister, the first meeting in 2020, we then constituted the Parliamentary Security Committee, but not a single meeting thereafter. And how could we go now and ask, like when they did under my administration, the Commissioner of Police, please come. And there 16 hours of cross-examination of all manner of things. And because we want to ask the present commissioner about his standing orders in relation to collecting $8.5 million for a wedding gift for a certain Brutus. We want to ask the commissioner whether there isn't a certain rule that says after 55 you can't be appointed. But no, we will never get that opportunity. And so it is with profound disappointment, I must tell you, that we do not have the implementation of what is called that which we have now as dealing with these issues. We have to establish comprehensive oversight mechanisms, and that is one of them. Comprehensive oversight mechanisms, and this must not only happen in relation to the police force, but the fire service. So much fires we have had. And notwithstanding so much monies that we have bought with new equipment and all of that, the fires rage on. And same thing with the prisons. Again, we have to expand and deepen the training programs and allocate lots more money. I think about 10% of this budget that is spent on security, we should advance and specialized training pathways, as I mentioned. And so, Mr. Speaker, we do have a set of recommendations. Implement anti-corruption safeguards by establishing the oversight committees that I talk about, and even within the police force itself. What you call the Police Complaints Authority, and even within the police itself. And let these things, the coroner's inquest, lots of things have been happening and we're not having that also, and the reports on that. It is fundamental that all these oversight mechanisms be put in place as early as possible, because, Mr. Speaker, we have the monies to do. But you know, Mr. Speaker, the history of the PPP's directed investments of monies is not one that inspires confidence. Their judgments have been frequently bad, and I know of it, even when they are not actually deliberately distorted to benefit someone or some group. Such government failures include, as we know, and we got to get back to it, because I noticed that is one of the things that your members over the other side of this floor have been talking about. Such failures include the Skeldon factory, NIS investments. A lot of the NIS monies went badly spent. CLICO funds, the Mila Fall. They got so many things. But for the present day, this 10-hour a week or whatever it is called employment scheme for $40,000 is another slush fund. It's a big slush fund. In my opinion, and I have said this 4 times right here in this parliament, the subsidization of sugar to the extent of about $40 billion to date, over and above that which we normally expend on it, is a big slush fund.
Honorable Member, I've been listening carefully to where you're going when you said deliberately distorted, imputing. So I'm going to strike those words from your presentation. You may continue.
I really think that I had the experience to avoid all of that, but you're very strict this morning. So there are a couple of other things that I would have liked to state on that, but I'm going to just bypass them. I want to state that we must not chase this growth mirage that the Honorable Finance Minister spoke about. We must substitute it with delivering for the well-being of Guyanese. That is what is fundamental here, Mr. Minister. A lot of people, they get on Facebook, a lot of people, they get in the party groups, and a lot of people, they get, well, in the ring is countering it. They're delivering this thing about how we're the highest, fastest growing, and all of that. But when you talk to those people, Mr. Minister, I want to tell you, I have been talking to them. They're punishing. You go to the markets, Skeldon Market, Port Morant Market, New Amsterdam Market, Parika Market. The people are suffering intensely. And it is, I am the one that buys most of the greens almost every time. And they only recently talked to Mr. Zulfikar about that they're struggling. They said it as much. And so delivering the well-being of the Guyanese is fundamental. pumpkin, bora, everything that is planted here, which the Minister of Agriculture proudly talks about. Every price going up and up and up. And so you could talk about all these things when your time comes. But what about delivering the well-being to Guyanese? And it does not require much, Mr. Speaker. It does not require much. Guyanese, even at the very lower down level, wants to see the mosquitoes that biting them every night to bring a halt to it. You can do something about that. You can also see the dirty streets in Georgetown now. When David Patterson was infrastructure minister and Annette Ferguson, it was clean. What you see is a lot of garbage all over the place now. Mr. Speaker, these little things matter. You don't have to necessarily go spend big time money behind infrastructure and all of that. The well-being of Guyanese as against infrastructural work needs to be attended to. Make quality of life better with the resources it has. Mr. Speaker, the quality of life of Guyanese, now, notwithstanding this big set of monies that we got, how much? $3.8 trillion. What we got to do, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure that we improve our education. We bad in maths. 50% can't matriculate. We got to do lots better in health. You got nurses shortage. You got medicine shortage. You got to do also better. And these are things that could be simply done with the money that you got. Yeah, that is why the Port Morant domestic violence and so on in Berbice is so high, because you ain't got no shortage of that. Rum. The alcoholic swings, you call it the binge drinking in Guyana is the highest in the Caribbean. We did a survey on drinking in Guyana, and it is important to understand that binge drinking is the highest in the Caribbean, and even marijuana and cocaine in school is very, very high at that level. But now that you got the money, make sure that you use it in these policies. Even the functioning of our courts. We noticed that Attorney General indicated that we're going to have what is called the appointment of Chief Justice and Chancellor soon. A lot of pressure came from a number of international and regional people that CCJ president and so on will be making these things. And it is important too that not only those two big appointments, but I read in a newspaper in Sabrok News about 5 days ago that we have to make certain judges who were appointed in 2018 substantive. And it is fundamental. I hope that it is not because of their independent thinking that they are not getting appointed as substantive judge. Well, I hope that that is so. All of them have been substantively appointed. All right, well, there are a lot of times when the Honorable Attorney General, I hope that you now go on for the Chief Justice and the Chancellor. I hope you go on now to the Chief Justice and Chancellor. My problem is that why, after all this kind of thing, you would have it. Mr. Speaker, building quality infrastructure rather than the collapsibles and the substandard causing the President to go out 5 o'clock in the morning and cussing up all the contractors.
Okay, you just stepped over again. You know, accusing the president. So please withdraw that for me, and then I'll ask someone to give you 5 minutes extension to conclude.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, I move that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to continue his presentation.
Honorable member, you have 5 minutes to continue and conclude the presentation, but you had to withdraw that reference to. Thank you.
Criticizing at an unholy hour at 5 o'clock, and even directing some of those criticisms to my good friend, Ms. Priya Manik Chan. Look, monies could be spent in some measure of getting life better for our Guyanese. In relation to traffic congestion, I now have to spend about 30 minutes from Delft Street to Hatfield Street, my new office. And yeah, that's another thing. Like, is everybody get sirens now? Mr. Speaker, just to bring my address, I want to talk about this slush fund mentality. This government has that mentality about it, whereby you can see in certain programs and even line item heads a number of big set of monies being there, and we're not getting accountabilities for it, or at least the Auditor General making mention of them. Take, for example, in the PM office disaster preparedness, we got about $40 billion now, and we understand that that is where they're going to give the cash grant from. But it comes up about $30 billion. I collect mine, that is true, but it's 30 billion it will come up. What happened to that other 10.5 billion? No, well, that is it. We have the Amerindian Development Fund, a number that is 3.4 billion in the 2022 budget, and we see that instead of the Amerindian Development Fund, the money going into, it was then transferred to the Amerindian Purpose Fund. And $3.4 billion we can't account for, and the Auditor General has indicated as much in the 2022 report. I can hand it to you. And that is why also in other very questionable sums in which we get, you know, like I mentioned it already, the slush funds in the $11 billion, the other $5 billion. And so it is fundamental, Mr. Speaker, that these be accounted for. This government has always talked about transparency and accountability, but we don't get it. And even the committees and commissions that we institutionalized are not functioning as a result. Mr. Speaker, I want to end by stating that, you know, on the first day, what I recall was that 2 ministers saying that we're going to take care of the people from cradle to the grave. I want to say we got to do better. We got to take care of the people from the womb to the tomb. And I don't want to tell you where further we can go, Mr. Speaker. We could even go further, right? From erection to resurrection. I hope that is not unparliamentary. But Mr. Speaker, I cannot, in my right mind, support this budget as it stands because of its misallocations, its questionable spendings, and the unaccountabilities that go with so much large sums, especially on the other and so on, and the various slush funds. I am going to ask that it is not supported. Thank you very much.